welcome back. In this class, we are discussing a new topic, that is microbes as biofertilizers. See, in the present day lifestyle, environmental pollution has been increased, isn't it? So day by day, the environmental pollution will be increased due to various factors. Among all those factors, the use of chemical fertilizers is also one of the factors which mainly causes environmental pollution. So why we are using chemical fertilizers? In order to increase the crop yield, we use chemical fertilizers. But the overuse of chemical fertilizers which causes several hazards. See, for example, if we overuse the chemical fertilizers, actually it leads to water pollution and soil pollution. Later, those chemicals will be accumulated in the crop plants. As a crop plant will be absorbing the nutrients, at that time the chemicals are also absorbed by the plants. So the chemicals gets accumulated in the plant. Later, when we eat those plants, the toxic chemicals which will be present in plants has been entered into the consumers. Maybe humans and other animals will be feeding upon the plants. At that time, the chemicals which are present in plants, they will enter into the consumers so that they are toxic to consumers. So because of all these disadvantages, so what we will do, it is better without using chemical fertilizers, it is better to switch over to organic farming by using biofertilizers. So what is organic farming? In organic farming, actually it is rising of unpolluted crop plants. Rising of unpolluted crop plants by using manures, biofertilizers and biopesticides. These will help in absorption of nutrients and also help in recycling of nutrients. That's why the use of biofertilizers is very important. Then what are biofertilizers? Here biofertilizers are nothing but the organisms which are used to enrich soil fertility or to enrich the nutrient quality. Nutrient quality of the soil, they are called as biofertilizers. So biofertilizers, these are the organisms, the biological organisms which are used to enrich the soil fertility or to increase the nutrient quality of the soil. And these biofertilizers are also called as microbial fertilizers. Biofertilizers are also called as microbial fertilizers because here we are using the biological organisms which are mainly microbes, and biofertilizers are also called as microbial fertilizers. Then which are the microbes which are used as biofertilizers? Here especially we are using bacteria, cyanobacterium and fungi as biofertilizers. So the commonly used microbes as biofertilizers are bacteria, cyanobacteria and fungi. And these biological organisms are these biofertilizers. They actually help in enriching the soil through a natural process of nitrogen fixation and by solubilizing phosphorus. You have studied nitrogen fixation in your first PUC. So where they help in nitrogen fixation. During nitrogen fixation, what happens? The atmospheric nitrogen gets converted into useful forms of nitrogen like nitrites, nitrates and ammonia. So those are useful forms are only absorbed by the plants. That's why these biofertilizers, they help in nitrogen fixation and they enriches the soil fertility. Even they help in solubilizing the phosphorus. Solubilizing the phosphorus. So you got the definition for nitrogen fixation. So during nitrogen fixation, the atmospheric nitrogen is converted into useful forms of nitrogen like nitrites, nitrates and ammonia. And the solubilization of phosphorus means here the insoluble form of phosphorus is converted into useful forms. And these biofertilizers. So what the biofertilizers, they mainly help in nitrogen fixation. They may be either freely living in the soil or they are associated symbiotically with some plants. nitrogen fixing bacteria. Nitrogen fixing bacteria. So which are the examples for free living nitrogen fixing bacteria? They are Azotobacter, Azospirillum, Clostridium, Basilicia. All these are examples for free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. Then why they are called as free living? As the name only says, they are freely living in the soil. So these nitrogen fixing bacteria, they are freely present in soil and perform nitrogen fixation. And they may be saprophytes. They may be growing on dead and decaying organic matter also. And some organisms, I am only talking about the free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. Free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. Here some are aerobic and some are anaerobic. If they are aerobic, they require oxygen. If they are anaerobic, they do not require oxygen. So some are aerobic and some are anaerobic. And some forms are photoautotrophic. If they are photoautotrophic, by utilizing sunlight, they can able to prepare their own food. So the photosynthetic or photoautotrophic forms are Rhodospirillum. So Rhodospirillum, it is a free living nitrogen fixing bacteria which is photoautotrophic in nature. Try to remember here, free living bacteria, they are freely present in soil and helps in nitrogen fixation. They may be saprophytes, they may be aerobic or anaerobic. Some are photoautotrophic and they usually helps in nitrogen fixation so that they will add organic matter and also increases the soil fertility. And examples you should remember: Azotobacter, Azospirillum, Basilicia, Clostridium, Rhodospirillum. So all these comes under free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. Now we will discuss free living nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. Free living nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. You know, cyanobacteria is also called as blue-green algae. A number of blue-green algae or a number of cyanobacteria, they mainly helps in nitrogen fixation because the main economic importance of cyanobacteria is that they help in nitrogen fixation. So many number of organisms which are freely present in the water, aquatic environment as well as in terrestrial environment. So most of them, they contribute for the nitrogen fixation. Then which are the examples for free living nitrogen fixing bacteria, cyanobacteria? They are Nostoc, Anabaena, Oscillatoria. So these are the examples for free living nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. And even they also help in enriching the soil fertility by adding organic matter and also they add extra nitrogen to the soil. And in paddy fields, these cyanobacteria play an important role as biofertilizers. And these cyanobacteria are the cheap and low-cost biofertilizers. They are the low-cost, extremely low-cost biofertilizers are the cyanobacteria. They are free-living nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. So that is about free-living cyanobacteria. Now we will discuss symbiotic nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Symbiotic nitrogen-fixing bacteria. So what is this symbiosis or symbiotic association? So this symbiotic association means the mutually beneficial association between two organisms. If you remember lichens are the symbiotic association between algae and fungi. So if the two organisms are mutually associated, they must be mutually benefited. So as in lichens, algae and fungi both are mutually benefited. That is symbiotic association. So here we are talking symbiotic nitrogen bacteria and plant. Generally, these bacteria, they obtain food and shelter from the plants. In turn, they provide the fixed nitrogen to the plant. Because even though there is a 78% of nitrogen in the atmosphere, plants cannot utilize that nitrogen directly. It has to be converted. That conversion is done by bacteria. So after conversion, the bacteria will provide fixed nitrogen to plants and plants will provide food and shelter to the bacteria. That is symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria. The most common one is rhizobium. The most common symbiotic association is rhizobium. You are familiar with the rhizobium. This rhizobium symbiotic association we have studied in the mineral nutrition chapter. Yes, so this rhizobium, it is having a symbiotic association with the root nodules of leguminous plants. So in leguminous plants, they have root nodules and those root nodules contain these symbiotic bacteria, especially rhizobium. So rhizobium, it is having symbiotic association with the root nodules of the leguminous plants. So in the leguminous plants, this bacteria will be taking shelter and they obtain food and they provide fixed nitrogen to the roots. And there are a number of rhizobium species are available in different plants. We should know the species of rhizobium. They are also very important. So there are different species of rhizobium are available. For example, Rhizobium leguminosarum, Rhizobium lupini, Rhizobium trifoli, Rhizobium meliloti, Rhizobium fascioli, Rhizobium japonicum, so these are the different species of rhizobium. Let me repeat. So Rhizobium leguminosarum, Rhizobium lupini, Rhizobium trifoli, Rhizobium meliloti, Rhizobium fascioli and Rhizobium japonicum. These are the different species of rhizobium which are present in different leguminous plants. Then how it helps in nitrogen fixation? Actually, while studying this symbiotic association or root nodule formation, actually these bacteria, this rhizobium bacteria, they are usually present in the soil as a free living bacteria. These rhizobium, they are freely present in soil, but when they are in free living condition, they cannot fix the atmospheric nitrogen. In free living condition, they cannot fix the atmospheric nitrogen, but they develop the ability of nitrogen fixation only after they have symbiotic association with the roots. When these bacteria enters into the root nodules, then only the nitrogenase enzyme will be activated and helps in conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into useful forms of nitrogen. So which means only under symbiotic association they will perform nitrogen fixation, but in free living condition they can survive but they cannot fix the atmospheric nitrogen. And do you remember in the nodule cells, this rhizobium, the bacterial colonies are surrounded by a reddish pink pigment called as leghemoglobin. The bacterial colonies are surrounded by a reddish pink pigment called as leghemoglobin, and that leghemoglobin is commonly called as oxygen scavenger. Yeah, why it is called as oxygen scavenger? Because nitrogenase, it is highly sensitive to molecular oxygen. It always requires anaerobic environment. In the presence of oxygen, nitrogenase will not work, so it cannot convert atmospheric nitrogen. That's why it requires anaerobic environment. It doesn't require oxygen, so that anaerobic environment will be provided by leghemoglobin. That's why it is called as oxygen scavenger. So that is rhizobium. And one more example we can study under symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria. It is Frankia. Even this also you studied in the mineral nutrition chapter. So Frankia also helps in root nodule formation and nitrogen fixation in some non-leguminous plants like alnus, symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. So symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. So here in symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria, some cyanobacteria they have symbiotic association with certain plants. See for example in case of cycas plant. So cycas belongs to gymnosperms. So in the cycas roots also we can find the presence of cyanobacteria as a symbiotic association. Even in lichens there are some cyanobacteria. Even some liverworts, especially in case of Marchantia, we can find certain cyanobacteria. Marchantia, Anthocerus. So all these are cyanobacteria. And very importantly, Azolla. Azolla, it is an aquatic pteridophyte or it is a fern, aquatic fern. So Azolla, which is an aquatic form or aquatic pteridophyte. So this Azolla having the symbiotic association with certain cyanobacteria. I have given the example: cycas roots, lichens, liverworts, and Azolla. Among all these, the Azolla it is very important. It is of great importance in agriculture. And this Azolla having symbiotic association with the cyanobacteria called as Anabaena. And what are the examples for symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria? You can give same examples: Nostoc, Anabaena, Acinetobacteria. They are also examples for symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. I mean to say, these cyanobacteria, whether they are in a free living condition or symbiotic condition, their main function is nitrogen fixation. So they will perform nitrogen fixation in a free living condition also, in symbiotic condition also. Here I am talking about Anabaena Azolla association or Azolla-Anabaena association. So as I said, Azolla it is a small aquatic fern. It is a small free floating aquatic fern which is associated with its complete name is Azolla pinnata. So Azolla pinnata. Azolla pinnata, it is a small free floating aquatic fern which is associated with blue-green algae called as Anabaena azollae. Anabaena azollae. So here Azolla pinnata is the fern, Anabaena azollae is a blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. And this Anabaena azollae, which is usually taking shelter in the leaves of this Azolla plant. And this Azolla plant which coexist in the paddy field. So along with the rice plants, we can find the presence of this Azolla, and this Azolla having symbiotic association with Anabaena azollae. So it will be residing in the leaves of this Azolla plant. Then how it helps in nitrogen fixation? How it will be beneficial to rice plants? See, in that paddy field, Azolla plants are there. As they have this cyanobacteria, they help in nitrogen fixation, and they will provide the part of fixed nitrogen this Azolla plant. A part of fixed nitrogen to this Azolla plant. Later, after the death of the Azolla plant, during the decaying of this Azolla, it provides that fixed nitrogen to rice plants. Initially, the fixed nitrogen cannot be directly absorbed by the rice plants. Initially, that will be absorbed by Azolla. Later, after the death of the Azolla plant, it will be available to rice plants. Even when the field is dried, during the time of harvesting, the field is dried. At that time, this Azolla acts as a green manure, helps in adding the nutrients and increasing the soil fertility. So this is about symbiotic nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. So till now we have discussed the nitrogen fixation that is done by bacteria and cyanobacteria. Now we will discuss about mycorrhiza. Yeah. So mycorrhiza, it is the symbiotic association of a fungus with the roots of higher plants. Mycorrhiza, it is a symbiotic association with the fungus and the roots of higher plants. The most common imagine a plant having this mycorrhizal association. So that mycorrhiza in the roots of that plant will absorb the phosphorus from the soil and later it will be passed on to the plants. That is how the phosphorus which is present in soil will be available to the plants. And the organisms, the plants which have these association, if the plants contain mycorrhizal association, they have other advantages also. Not only they are absorbing phosphorus, even they have more advantages, like if they have mycorrhizal association, the plants, they have resistant to root-borne pathogens. The plants will develop resistant to root-borne pathogens. Whatever the root-borne pathogens which causes diseases in roots, against them they will develop the resistance, and they can able to develop the tolerance against salinity and drought. Extreme drought conditions can be tolerated, and extreme saline conditions, if extreme salt conditions are there, even in all those conditions they have the tolerance to tolerate such conditions. Also they have the ability, and they increases the plant growth and development, and even they enhances or initiates seed germination. These are the some other advantages of having mycorrhiza. If mycorrhiza having associated with the roots of certain higher plants, and they help in absorption of nutrients, later that will be provided to plants. Other than that, they have some other advantages as I mentioned. And here the mycorrhiza, there are two groups. Mycorrhiza has been classified into two groups, namely ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. So it is mainly depending upon where the mycorrhiza is residing, whether it is present on the surface of root or present within the root. Depending upon that, the mycorrhiza has been classified into two groups, ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. So here ectomycorrhiza. So as the name ecto indicates, you may have heard about ectoparasites. Likewise, here ectomycorrhiza, these are usually residing on the surface of the root. For example, if this is the root, they are present on the surface of the root, they are called as ectomycorrhiza. Ectomycorrhiza, they are residing on the surface of the root, but internally they may lie in the intercellular spaces of the cortex. Let me draw a simple diagram of the root, section of the root. So this is the outermost layer of the root called as epiblema, having the root hairs. So this is the cortical region. So here you can observe the presence of this mycorrhiza, but internally it will lie in the intercellular spaces. From the internal spaces they have that origin. So internally they lie in the intercellular spaces of the cortex. Then what is the use of ectomycorrhiza? These ectomycorrhiza, they help in absorption of water. Usually root can able to absorb the water and nutrients. Along with the root here, mycorrhiza, it helps in absorption of nutrients, absorption of water, absorption of minerals, especially more than about 2 to 3 times more times the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium will be absorbed by the mycorrhiza. So root is absorbing, so along with the root 2 to 3 times greater than that root, it will absorb the minerals. Then, so what else we can know about this ectomycorrhiza? This ectomycorrhiza is, as I said, it is present on the root, on the surfaces of root. You may have seen in some eucalyptus plants, on the trees or on the root, we can find the presence of certain ectomycorrhiza. Even one example I can give you, agaricus, that is a mushroom. That mushroom is also growing on trees. Sometimes it will be growing on the trees by taking the food and shelter from the plant, and it will be helping providing the nutrients. Likewise, ectomycorrhiza plays an important role, and this ectomycorrhiza can also able to secrete the antimicrobial substances. This ectomycorrhiza can able to secrete the antimicrobial substances so that it will protect the young root from the root-borne pathogens. Whatever the root-borne pathogens which are present in the soil, against them, these antimicrobial substances secreted by the ectomycorrhiza, it will protect the young root. So this is about ectomycorrhiza. Then endomycorrhiza. So here endomycorrhiza means which are present within the root. Especially they are present in the intercellular spaces of the cortex. So in these intercellular spaces we can find the presence of this endomycorrhiza. One thing you should remember, mycorrhiza is nothing but fungi. And fungi in kingdom Mycota, you have studied the entire body of the fungi. It is made up of a thread-like structures called as hyphae. The interwoven masses of hyphae is called as mycelium. That is very important. So here I am talking about the fungi, mycelium, which is usually present in the intercellular spaces of the cortex. Sometimes some hyphae branches. What is hyphae? It is the thread-like structure in the fungi. So in this mycorrhiza, all these thread-like structures which will be present in the intercellular spaces, some hyphae branches will be entering into the cortical cells. So they are usually present in the intercellular spaces. Sometimes some branches can able to move or can able to penetrate into the cortical cells. If the hyphae branches which are penetrated into the cortical cells, they will be like the swollen structures called as vesicles. So the hyphae which is entered, which is penetrated into the cortical cells, it may develop a swollen structure called as vesicle, or it may develop the finely branched structure called as arbuscles. You may have heard about VAM, vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. It is nothing but this only. The endomycorrhiza is also called as vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza because this endomycorrhiza, which is present in the intercellular spaces of the cortex, some hyphae branches will be entering into the cortical cells, and those hyphae, they may develop a swollen structure called as vesicles and finely branched structure called as arbuscles. Hence, endomycorrhiza is also called as vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. Then what is their function? They also help in absorption of water and nutrients. Water and nutrients. And the best example for VAM or endomycorrhiza is glomus. So this glomus, especially in case of some croplands and in some grasses, this glomus endomycorrhiza helps in absorption of nutrients and water. So that is about endomycorrhiza. Here mycorrhiza, they are grouped into ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza, and their role and examples are very, very important. Then what are the advantages or importance of biofertilizers? So we have discussed all these bacteria, cyanobacteria and fungi. So overall, what is the importance of using biofertilizers? So what is the main use? By using soil fertilizers, what we can able to increase? So it increases the soil fertility. The use of biofertilizers increases the soil fertility. After increasing the soil fertility, the crop yield can also be increased. We are talking about the importance of biofertilizers and advantages of biofertilizers. Firstly, the soil fertility is increased. The crop yield can be increased and environmental pollution can be decreased. Or we can able to reduce the environmental pollution. And they have resistance to root-borne pathogens. They have tolerance to drought, salinity. They can increase the plant growth and development. They initiate seed germination. And even these mycorrhiza. So these mycorrhiza, they helps in promoting the plants to secrete more number of growth promoting factors. So growth promoting hormones you have studied. So these biofertilizers helps to initiate the plant to secrete greatest advantage of biofertilizers. Therefore, without using chemical fertilizers or instead of using biofertilizers, it is better to use biofertilizers because of all these advantages. So this completes the role of microbes as biofertilizers, and that completes the chapter microbes in human welfare. Now we will discuss few objectives related to this topic. See, first question: which of the following is a cyanobacterium that can fix atmospheric nitrogen? Option A spirulina, option B rhizobium, option C oscillatoria, option D all of these. Here spirulina, it is not a cyanobacteria. Rhizobium is also, it is not a cyanobacteria. Oscillatoria is the cyanobacteria, helps in atmospheric fixation of atmospheric nitrogen. Option C. Next one, the fungi that forms a mycorrhizal association with plants is option A glomus, option B alternaria, option C rhizopus, option D penicillium. Here the mycorrhizal association with plants is glomus. Next, third question, which of the following is a free living nitrogen fixing bacteria? Option A rhizobium, option B azotobacter, option C frankia, option D none of these. You know, option B azotobacter, it is a free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. And next question, fourth question, the symbiotic cyanobacteria present in azolla and rice fields is option A nostoc, option B anabina, option C oscillatoria, option D chlorella. You know, anabina having symbiotic association with azolla plant, and they are commonly present in rice field. So this is about these are the few objective questions related to the topic. So remaining we can discuss in the next class, and in the next class we can start up with the new chapter. So this completes the chapter microbes in human welfare.